Welcome to the Communities of Character podcast, the show that shares rich conversation about character development across different vocations and callings. I'm Jennifer Hogan, and today we're continuing our series on the 11 Principles Framework from Character.org. And today's guest is Dr. Alicia Hunsberger. Dr. Hunsberger is passionate about working to raise the next generation of kind and smart kids. Alicia's worked in education for over 20 years. She partners with teachers to learn, lead, and serve students and families. Now, she currently works as a principal in Vestavia Hills City Schools in Alabama. And in addition to taking opportunities for continued learning, Alicia's faith, family, and travels around the globe have helped to inform her perspective on the world and her response to student needs. Now let's get into some deeper insights from our expert guest for this episode of the podcast. Thank you for joining us for today's episode of the Communities of Character podcast, a place where you can learn about all things character. I'm your host, Jennifer Hogan, and in today's episode, we're discussing service learning and putting core values into action with a principal of a National School of Character, Dr. Alicia Hunsberger. Welcome, Alicia.
Well, it's my pleasure to be here. Thanks so much for having me.
Well, we're so glad to have you on the podcast today. And for our listeners who may not be familiar with you, would you share a little bit about your current context?
Yes, so I've been working in education for over 20 years and currently serving in Vestavia Hills City Schools. And I am the proud principal of Pizitz Middle School. I actually have most of my experience from elementary, and this is my first year in the middle school. So it's been great, and I'm really enjoying my work here. I'm really passionate about meeting students' needs in school, and I really believe at all levels that students can learn at high levels. And I believe students really do this best in an environment where relationships are fostered and character has an elevated level of importance. So I'm really excited about getting to speak with you today about character education and what that has looked like in the schools that I've been a part of.
Well, we are just thrilled to have you. And for our listeners, Alicia became the principal at Pizitz Middle School last summer, but she was previously the principal at Cahaba Heights Elementary School, which was a 2020 National School of Character. And so, Alicia, would you talk a little bit about what that felt like when you got the news that your school had been recognized in that way?
Oh my goodness. It was really so exciting to be able to celebrate alongside the school. I will tell you that our journey was a great one, as everybody has been. And what we talk about in character education is that it's a journey, not necessarily a destination, because you always have room for growth. I really have thought a lot about the definition of character and recently heard a great definition that character is really the sum of our habits. And I believe really that in the right environment, every habit can be cultivated and learned over time. And so, although I don't think you've arrived once you earn something like a National School of Character, I do think it's exciting that outside organization would be able to look in and see, wow, we see character at work here, and we see areas of strength for your school, and we also see areas that you could grow in, and so that was just such a joy to get to be a part of that experience. Also, we had our national visit and walkthrough on March 13th, 2020. And that is a really significant date for most people in the world, because that
Absolutely.
everything kind of shut down. And I said, you know what? One good thing happened on Friday the 13th, and that was our National School of Excellence visit and opportunity to get feedback. And so we were so excited that something good did come from that day. And even through, the shutdown that we experienced all of that spring as a school, when we found out the news in May, we were trying to get creative on how to tell the students and the parents and families that were a part of our community, because it was such big news and we were sad we weren't getting to be together. But in a very strange sense, it brought us together in a sweet way, even though if that makes sense. So.
Yeah, it does. It does. And, just congratulations to you and to Cahaba Heights Elementary and the commitment that was made to creating a culture of character, and how ironic that Friday the 13th of 2020, March the 13th of 2020 was the day that you guys found out or had your visit, and it's just very, very exciting. And today, because y'all are National School of Character, and your character journey has been so awesome, today we're going to talk about your time at Cahaba Heights, and specifically Principle 5, which is all about service learning and volunteering and putting those core values into action. But before we take that deep dive, would you share what motivated you and got you involved with character education?
Yes, honestly, it was our partnership with Hope Leadership Academy in partnership with Stanford University. I am a proud graduate of Stanford, and one of the ladies that sat on my doctoral defense is really involved in Hope Academy, and that's Dr. Jody Newton. And she knew that I was a school leader and that I might have an interest in character education and how that might look in my school. And so she told me about the opportunity to be a part of Hope Academy, and I think we joined the group in its second year, possibly. And then I also got some other Vestavia principals that said, "Hey, this is really good work that's happening at Hope Academy, if that's something that you'd be interested in." So at the time, Vestavia Hills Elementary West joined us as well. And so it was really great to have lots of our school teams join in the partnership with Hope Academy so we could have conversations not only across our state and nation, but also conversations within our district about character work and what that might look like in schools. So really, it's that partnership with Hope Academy and then their partnership with character.org that got me involved with character ed from the start.
Awesome. Well, I know that Hope Institute uses the 11 Principles Framework from character.org as one of its tools when working with schools. And could you just share how the 11 Principles Framework served you in your work at your previous school, Cahaba Heights Elementary, as well as where you are currently, Pizitz Middle School?
Yeah, so, in general, as a person by nature, I am very goal oriented. And so I'm really motivated best when I have a standard that I'm working toward, and that's both personally and professionally. So people who know me well that know that I'm definitely a determined person, and the goal orientation really just helps me to achieve goals better when I've kind of got a standard that I'm working
Mm-hmm.
toward. And as really the idea of culture and character are really difficult to measure. And so
Mm-hmm.
when I started to learn more about the 11 principles, it really helped me like lay the foundation and give purpose to the work of character, because character is a very broad term that can be used in a variety of different ways. And what I loved about the 11 principles and still love now is that it kind of gives you a sense of like ways to measure how you're growing in those different areas. And so things like core values and the establishment of those, things like shared leadership, which I believe strongly in, things like service learning, academic excellence. These are all components of those 11 principles. And it really kind of gives feet to the work, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So, because it's culture work, you really need a way to kind of measure whether all the effort that you're making is even making a dent. Like, is it helping kids grow and learn? And so that framework for me really was helpful. And I think it's helpful for educators too to have that goal orientation. Like, okay, well, we might be strong in principle one, establishing of core values, but principle five might be kind of an area we could work on, which is service learning. So you're able to kind of evaluate and have a status of like, where are we and what can we work on next to get better?
Love that. Well, Principle 5, the one that we're focusing on today, it mentions the difference between community service and service learning, which explicitly links to curriculum and offers opportunities for student leadership and for for teachers who are new to the 11 principles, and even our listeners who may be new to the 11 principles. How do you explain the difference?
Well, I didn't really think much about it at the beginning. And I will
Mhm.
tell you, there were a couple of the principles that when we started kind of the application process with Hope Academy, we really didn't know if we would be strong in certain areas. And so Principle 5 was one that we needed to grow in as a school before we even went through the application process. And so um, we did a lot of work kind of teasing out what is just service, which is also a good thing, and then what is service learning, which is an even better thing, I would say. So in our schools, in our district in Vestavia Hills, one of the pillars of our mission is unparalleled community support, and that goes both ways. And I love that about our community. So it was easy to point to lots of opportunities for service in our community. Students are doing things like a canned food drive, or they're initiating ways to raise money for a specific cause. But none of that at the time was necessarily tied to a learning experience. So service learning would be more a way to incorporate what you're learning in the classroom and infusing service in. So it's just kind of a natural flow of what's happening in the classroom, and it's more curriculum based. So it involves really development of projects that could be student led as an outpouring of curriculum being taught in the classroom. So we really had to go back and revisit, what are our standards for learning, and how can we provide opportunities for student voice and choice to put this learning into action. And to me, that's really what service learning is. It really should be kind of embedded in the school day, and then it motivates kids to get working. And oftentimes service learning overflows into other parts of the day because kids get so motivated to do the work and get so invested. So
thank you for sharing that.
yeah, sure.
Yeah, Principle 5, is focused on giving those students those opportunities for moral action, in particular through the service learning and volunteering, just what you described. Would you share some examples of how students at Cahaba Heights put their core values into action?
Oh, absolutely. So one of there are many examples that I could give, and some of those are may seem small, but really just a part of the culture. And then others were kind of a larger undertaking. One thing that was just really a natural fit, and this was very much led by teachers in our school. And I'll tell you, like, I'm happy to champion the work that happened at Cahaba Heights, but I can really take no credit for this work without just a team of educators that were committed to character and committed to being examples of that in their students. So they really championed this work of service learning. And so the counselor and a teacher at Cahaba Heights really took on a particular project with the new Merkel House, which is a senior center that's located almost on Cahaba Heights campus. I mean, it is right there by our school, and we shared a parking lot at the time. And so the new Merkel House is a place where senior adults come and they play games and they have activities and they eat meals there. And we just thought, wow, there's not really a better opportunity to partner with a senior center than ones that are right on campus. And so really it became an initiative from these teachers and this counselor, and then fell over into the students. Well, when we are performing something in music, is that something that we could go and serve them there? Could we go sing for them? Could we have an authentic audience? And they started building relationships with the seniors there. And it really was an amazing partnership where they would go eat lunch on a regular basis. We had students over at the senior center eating lunch with these individuals and just serving, making themselves available. And it was such a reciprocal opportunity that I would say that those senior adults served our kids so well. And they really enjoyed just this relationship of serving one another. But this also became a part of our conversation in the curriculum as well, like writing for a purpose. So some of our students were writing letters to advocate for different things for individuals at the New Merkel House, or they were writing letters to individual adults to support them. And then we had some that would end up being homebound. And then certainly as we entered into the COVID months where the New Merkel House was closed for over a year, our students carried on those relationships. And that's what I mean by something that starts in the school that can carry over into your personal life, and just students trying to initiate and think of ways that they could serve these adults outside of school, and they would do this on their own time. And so the idea of service learning is like, how can we give back in such a way that, service actually benefits us more than it benefits, usually those who are receiving the service. And that's how this became just such a reciprocal relationship. We also had another project that I think was pretty special. In our art classroom, we partnered with a country that was in crisis, and our students did a global art project. And it was also reciprocal in nature, where students in a country in the Middle East were drawing pictures for our kids, and they were kind of pen pals of sorts, but through artwork. And they were writing about our core values and drawing pictures about our core values. And the students at this school that we partnered with were doing the same. And that was very much a reciprocal relationship that they had, but it went directly through the art curriculum at our school, where all the students were super motivated to be a part of that and excited about that initiative. So those are two examples of just opportunities for service learning that were embedded into the school.
Yeah, I love those. Sort of on a different note, one of our goals for this podcast is for our listeners to have practical takeaways and learn from our experts and practitioners. And in thinking about failing forward, have you made any missteps in applying the core values at your school? And if yes, would you mind sharing them and how you overcame them?
Sure. As a leader, goodness, I make mistakes all the time. I have learned really that good leadership requires healthy reflection. I can't ask my teachers to reflect on their practices if I'm not willing to reflect on mine. So I really do try to be reflective in both the short term, kind of the here and the now, like what's happening this week, and then in the long term, just kind of when I think about vision and mission for long-term goals for a school that I'm working with, it's like, okay, let's look back over the semester, let's look back over the year, and how has my leadership played out over time, and what ways can I change or reflect or pivot? um, in general, I kind of have this driver orientation where I like to get some good work done. Um,
Hmm.
and so I like to see something and think about how we can make it happen and then get going. Because of that, personal framing, there's some positive things about that. I usually get a lot done. I can be pretty efficient. But oftentimes I can try to move too fast. And I would say when I think about the work of core values, it's really not a checklist, it's really not, and the whole work of character in general, you can't just check off that principle and move on like you're not gonna circle back to it.
Hmm.
Um, it's not a list of things that you can do. It's culture work, and so it takes constant, going back purpose. And I would just say specifically at Cahaba Heights, we had done some previous work um, really centering around behavior norms in our school. And that was good work that we had done. And we had established what we called the big three: be safe, be respectful, and be your best, which was really great. And we kind of used those big three as what we said were kind of our core values. The more work that we did with core values, and even in our national review, um, it was almost like confusing to an outside reader because it was like, are these values or these behaviors that you're hoping for?
Hmm.
And we kind of really worked through that and kind of teased out, there are behavior expectations that you have in your school, and you should have those, but they're not necessarily like character traits. So we kind of went back and said, okay, what does it mean to be our best? Like, what character traits go under that, and aligning that more with our core values. So really this year, we did that work all of last year in reflection after our national review. And now they've kind of redefined those. And so at the end of last year, we really had a big emphasis on student and parent voice being a part of that process and working on redefining. And so this year, they have utilized new core values at Cahaba Heights that we established at the end of last year. And we had a big reveal, and the students were all a part of that. And I can see now how kind of me rushing that process at the beginning probably um, limited our reflection, and so that's something we've gone back and corrected, and I'm excited for them this year. But again, it's a journey, and I think it's just that continuous work that you need to come back to and be reflective of. But that's a specific example for me. Don't rush the work.
I think that's great advice for
Yeah.
any leader, and any of us who have been in those positions understand exactly what you're saying about sometimes you have to go slow to go fast, and it
Yeah.
is a journey, and it doesn't mean it's a straight shot. So I
Mhm.
appreciate you sharing that and being open, and your vulnerability and sharing that as well. What about leaders who want to grow service learning at their school? Do you have any practical steps to share with them about that?
Yeah, I think you and I have talked about this before, just the idea that you can have the principal, you wonder, does the principal have to be the one leading this work?
Hmm.
I kind of feel like they do. I mean, they
Hmm.
definitely have to be a part of the conversation to make the culture shifts that need to happen in schools regarding character and specifically service learning. So, as the leader, you do need to lead in the work, but you don't have to be the only driver. So, my first piece of advice would be gather a team. You
Hmm.
know, the whole notion of character ed is about developing good character in kids and in ourselves as well. And we all do better when we have ownership in the work. So, just like our students, teachers don't want to be told what to do. They want to be part of developing a good solution for kids. They're with the kids every day. So, don't come up with these pie in the sky ideas, like get in classrooms, see what your curriculum is already teaching, as an outpouring of that, what could we do in response with service learning in our school that would make sense for us? Like, what are things that we're already passionate about that we can really put feet to?
Hmm.
So as a new leader at Pizitz, I'm really learning about the many ways that service learning has already been done here, and there are a variety of ways. And so now, moving forward into next year, we're really reflecting on what's gone well and then what we can do better, and really working on a more systematic approach to service learning. So we have some exciting things coming for next year that I'm looking forward to. One being offering an elective class that focuses on service leadership. And that class is going to be the ones that initiate this, you know, the service that we do at Pizitz. So it's going to be very much about student voice and them being a part of this work. And that class that's ongoing will help it to be more systematic instead of random.
Hmm. Wow, that sounds awesome and exciting.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, yeah. So today has been such a great conversation about your character journey. And just as we wrap up this episode, I always like to ask, would you share a book or a podcast recommendation that you found to be helpful or impactful on your journey?
Yes, there's so many great ones, but two that come to mind are both by Thomas Lacona, who is a guru in character education and someone that I have just learned a whole lot from. One of the books that we utilize to come up with lots of ideas is from Character Matters. And in that book, he really just has tons and tons of ideas from schools all around the nation that have done this good work with character. And so that was a good place for our team to start, with just thinking about ideas that were there and how could we take those ideas and make them our own at Cahaba Heights. One of the ideas that came from that book was really doing a parent teacher book study. And so we actually did that, and we utilized his other book, which is called How to Raise Kind Kids. And we had a parent book study at Cahaba Heights, and it was really, really great. It was very powerful to hear the reflection from the parents, and teachers were involved in the conversation. And so both of those books were very valuable to us in our process, and it was awesome to be able to offer that opportunity for parents to be a part of the work.
Cool. Well, I will definitely share those recommendations in our show notes for all of our listeners so that they can go back and check those books out. And our listeners may want to reach out to you for more information about what we discussed today. What are some of the best ways for our listeners to engage with you on social media?
Yeah, so you can find me on Twitter. It's just at Alicia Hunsberger. I also have the Twitter for Pizitz Middle, so you can check us out there. And I'm an old school girl, so you can email me too. Like on the Pizitz website, you can find my email address, and I'm the principal here, so pretty easy to find.
Awesome. Well, I'll be sure to drop those links in the show notes as well. And I just thank you so much for being here today, Alicia. I appreciate you sharing your successes as well as lessons learned. And as the leader in your school's character journey, it has been a huge win for all of our listeners to get to hear from you today. I'm a huge fan of you and your work, and I just encourage our listeners to engage with you, to continue learning from you. And to all our listeners, please show us some love by leaving us a review on Apple Podcasts and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss an episode. We appreciate you. Take care, friends.
Thank you so much.